Hey everybody, Keylime here, this time with another class guide. I'm going to be reviewing the Dragonguard class. Dragonguard, it kind of does everything. So, Dragonguard is pretty cool. As the super cool tagline that I just said implies, it kind of does a lot of different things. So, when it comes to classes, there's a lot of different things that you're looking for. Skull reduction is actually a really nice talent to grab, or trait to grab, so this is cool. Some ability to do 4-5 matching and pumping is also very cool. So life and magic are both getting pumped every 4 or 5 match. So right away, just by looking at these, we've already got a pretty cool thing. I mean, he's not just pumping himself here, he's pumping all dragons. So this is actually a pretty nice set of traits to grab. Then when it comes to the talents, we kind of get this weird mix of stuff. So if you've seen any of my other class guides, you know that I don't think overly favorably about these two trees. Morale basically has some pretty weak stat bumps. Guardian doesn't really have all that much interesting. However, Fire does get our big boy down here, Mr. Fireblade. So when it comes to the different talents, this one's a complete waste of time. This is a complete waste of time. This at least gets you some utility. Of course, if you're not PvPing with your Dragonguard, one of these two will be a better option, more than likely this one. But at first level, you're not really getting anything exciting, and that's kind of a theme, as you'll see. Here you can at least make yourself immune to Burning and Fairy Fire, which has some utility. These both minor stat bumps, not very worth talking about. At level 10, you can burn somebody when an ally dies. I don't like abilities that trigger when somebody dies, so it's not something you can kind of use as a reliable setup for anything, so this isn't very good. Gaining a barrier at the start of the battle, definitely nice. And then this is, of course, a total waste. So Vanguard is pretty decent. So we already have 40% skull reduction, and now we're starting with the barrier. So pretty defensive from that capacity. Firestarter is actually pretty cool because at least here we're able to start with the Firestorm. So a lot of dragons you'll see are actually red. So having the ability to start with a Firestorm at least gives you an option to start a little faster than you normally would. So this is pretty cool. Razor Armor is also kind of interesting. So you could theoretically be building some kind of Skull Bashy kind of lineup with Dragonguard since we have 40% reduction from skulls. Having the ability to do extra damage on skulls, this would just kind of tip the favor even more in your direction if you're doing some kind of Skull Bashing lineup. So this is theoretically possible to take over Firestarter. Either one of these are okay options for level 20. Quick Study is a total waste. I vote no. 10% bonus XP is just not that great. Your armor that you're wearing is more than likely giving you way more than this, so don't worry about that. At level 40, we don't have anything all that exciting either. I generally opt for this, putting 2 to all skills in the first position. Since we have 40% skull reduction, you should pretty much always be running your Dragonguard in the first slot. It just kind of makes the most sense, otherwise you're missing out on one of the traits that you have for 40% skull reduction, which is pretty nice. So 2 to all stats, nothing amazing, but it's at least better than nothing. Again, I don't like any of these trigger when somebody dies things, so I'm not a fan of this at all. And this is also really not that exciting. Even though you will have a decent amount of red allies, only 1 magic is like laughably poor, so nothing worth it there. At level 70, we do get some cool stuff though. So Firebringer is always nice. Being able to get bonus red is very cool. So this is an option for sure. However, in the current meta of the world, and at least at the time of making this video, a lot of buff-oriented teams starting to exist, things like Life and Death, or like even if you think about Dawnbringer teams, teams that are basically just trying to buff themselves with weird stuff like Bless or with Barrier. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones you're going to care about. Banishment will actually get rid of all of them on 4 or 5 matches, so this is actually pretty cool. It basically just allows you to keep doing your thing without having to worry about whatever weird buffing stuff they're doing to themselves. So this is actually pretty nice. I generally opt for this. And then all allies starting with 15% mana. Like 15% mana is kind of bad. Like it might mean the difference between, needing a mana surge to get full versus like not being able to get full. This is pretty weak. I generally don't recommend anything like this. If you're not able to be, filling yourself effectively, like 15% mana isn't really going to make or break anything, so I generally ignore this. But then at level 100, of course, we get Fireblade, which if you've seen my Sunspear video, I'm pretty obsessed with. So Fireblade allows you to do triple skull damage on burning, which makes you just straight up murder people. So this is like absolutely sick. Anytime you get offered this, there is pretty much literally nothing else that could even match the power of this. So the moment you have a class with Fireblade, you immediately need to be thinking about how can I force burning to happen so I can start hitting people super hard for triple skull damage. And hint, it's absolutely not from something like this, which is like hyper unreliable to work with. The other two options are total trash, so Fireblade it is. So when we're looking at the Dragonguard overall, we have a really cool mix of stuff. So we've got 40% skill reduction, we have some ability to magic pump ourselves and even pump our life a little bit. Both of those are actually pretty cool. When it comes to this tree, you're kind of just getting a weird mix of stuff, like the ability to have more attack in PvP for me at least is very cool. This immunity is pretty not so great. Barriers are very nice, like starting opener. The ability to start getting mana faster is always nice. This is kind of throwaway, but at least it's not nothing. This is actually pretty cool. I like this a lot. And this is actually really cool, and I like this a lot. So Dragonguard's kind of doing a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, the most notable missing things from this tree are you don't have the ability to start with 50% mana, so that's really not so fun. And honestly, that's kind of the only thing that's preventing, I think, this class from getting like mass adoption from everybody else. As far as what it's bringing to the table, it's kind of this weird jack of all trades kind of class. Like, it's doing a lot of really interesting stuff. Like, overall, in terms of classes go, I think it's actually pretty nice. So then when we look at troops that go nicely with our super cool Dragonguard guy, let's do some sorting on dragons. So obviously we've got some of the top ones here with the mythics. So Elamogrum, he's okay. I admittedly don't love him all that much. I find it hard to try and build him into teams. The cool thing about him, of course, is that he decreases all enemy attack by 4 on every 4 or 5 match. So if you're having a very loop-heavy lineup, it's very easy to kind of like reduce the enemy team down to 0 attack on everybody. So that's always kind of cool. His damage isn't bad at all. This is pretty decent. But the amount of gems that he makes is not so great, and it's boosted by burning enemies by a 1-to-1. So like at most, this will create 12. And if you can reliably create 12, that's actually a really decent amount of purple mana generation. So you could think maybe I pair him with Infernus and that works. I think the main issue I have with someone like him is that it's just kind of an unreliable caster. Like I generally have a hard time trying to constantly keep a Darkstorm running of some kind or something like that with him. Like when you think Dragonguard, you think red mana. You're thinking fire, you're thinking red mana. So purple mana doesn't really synergize super well. You'll see with other dragon troops, they're generally doing stuff with red mana, so it doesn't really fit in. I don't necessarily love him, but he will get magic pumped from this, so this is actually pretty nice. If you pull him, not the worst troop in the world. Worldbreaker is always very cool, so he's exploding the board, so you're getting tons of mana. This is pretty much enough to always blow up the entire board. The amount of damage he does to all is also pretty solid, so this is really nice. And then he's got this weird wild card thing, which is gaining 5 to a random skill on 4 or 5 gem matches. So sometimes that boosts attack, sometimes it's defense, sometimes it's health, and sometimes it's magic. And of course the one you care about is magic, because whenever he pumps up magic, this is just starting to crank up a lot. So I mean, it's not just by 1 or it's not by 2, it's by 5, but you have a 1 in 4 chance of it happening. So not the best pumping in the world. The other thing that's working nicely again, though, is that this will get pumped since you're Dragonguard and he's a dragon. Every 4 or 5 matches, he's at least going to get 1, and then sometimes he'll get another 5 on top of that because of that final trait. So overall, mana generation really nice, damage pretty cool. Sometimes you'll end fights with him doing like 60-something damage to all, which is obviously crazy. The one downside with him, of course, is his mana cost is very high. I admittedly don't find it super hard to fill him anyway. I kind of find mana cost as this arbitrary limitation. Obviously, yes, you're going to fill him a little more complicated than other troops. However, if you're building your team correctly, you're not going to get like a little bit of mana. You're going to like splurge the board with tons of mana. So I honestly don't find filling him all that complicated. You have the ability to give yourself bonus red if you want. Your banner will be giving you bonus red, of course. And hopefully you're having some form of mana generation in the form of explosions, mana conversion, something like that. You can fill them pretty decently. Overall, pretty cool troop. Then other notable ones, we've got Divinia, who's probably the best defensive troop in the game, from my opinion. Exploding all the red on the board, cleansing everybody while they're doing it, and also giving them all 22 life. And again, this will scale with Dragonguard, so every 4 or 5 match you're getting, this is going to boost and boost and boost. So you can obviously imagine you're going to be building a ton of health. That's obviously very cool. It's a way to kind of turtle up yourself, also cleanse off any annoying nonsense that they did to you. So always very nice. And then look, it's the Hierophant class. No, I'm just kidding. So this is causing a random positive status effect on 4 or 5 gem matches. So this is obviously way better than what the Hierophant can do. But you're going to be getting a lot of random little benefits from this. So you might just be barriered randomly, you might get blessed randomly, you could just get enchanted. If you have a very loop heavy kind of lineup, this actually brings a ton to the table. Like, this is what Hierophant should be. Sorry, I'm still a little salty about the Hierophant class, but Divinia, obviously a very, very good defensive troop. Divinia was one of my most used troops when I was just starting the game. I think it's still like my third most used troop, so Divinia gets tons of play as far as I'm concerned. Other notable ones, there's actually a decent amount, so I'm going to try not to spend too much time. Glitterclaw is pretty cool theoretically. I don't find Dragonguard works super nicely with green mana, which this troop is all about, so it'll transform blues to greens. Fairy firing all enemies is actually really nice, but they're only doing a single target damage for this. This gaining enchant on reds is okay. It's not nothing, but it's not all that great. Again, you're generally trying to build around red as far as dragons are concerned. But as far as an overall troop, I think this is a troop that isn't bad by itself. I think it's just harder to pair it into a green lineup, especially on a Dragonguard that's going to work effectively. There's no way to like instantly start making green mana, for instance. The only way you could theoretically do that is run a Leprechaun and have a Leaf Storm at the start, which of course Dragonguard cannot do. So this troop, as cool as they are, I don't think it fits super nicely with Dragonguard. Crystanax is obviously very nice. This damage will boost again. It has a summon in case you need it. This is boosted by the gems removed by an OK ratio, so if there was like 20 gems of a certain color, which would admittedly be a lot, this could do a lot of damage, and that might lead to looping, which would then also pump them more since you're running Dragonguard. The skull reduction generally doesn't get much play, you don't put them in the top slot. This enchanting with purple again, like it comes into play sometimes, but again, enchant is kind of weak. But this is a pretty cool dragon that you can snag. Shegra is kind of weird. You create 6 reds and then it turns all reds to skulls. I always have a problem with Shegra because, again, since we love red mana as a Dragonguard, this is kind of taking away all of the red mana on the board. You're also getting a little burning when you match red gems, so I feel like he's kind of fighting himself also. Like, when he converts everything to red, you're not going to be burning anybody. Since you're running Dragonguard, you would theoretically want to be burning everybody since you could do triple skull damage, assuming you got it to level 100. So when you're first starting out, you might find some cool, fun tricks to do with him, but I think the later into the game you go, he kind of falls off completely. There's better troops to do what he tries to do. Silanamora, if I can ever say his name right. Also pretty cool, some okay mana generation with this. Not the best, but something. Dealing damage to all, but the nicer thing about him is that he's entangling the first enemy on 4 or 5s. So just by putting him in your lineup and doing any kind of looping, you're protected against skull damage by default, so this is actually pretty nice. You'll find this happens kind of all the time, so this is very cool. And sometimes when he dies, he becomes a Dragonette, which is that super annoying, just inflict a bunch of status effects to whoever it hits with only 8 mana cost, so that's not the worst thing in the world when that happens either. So he's a pretty decent troop, but again, he's got the green side of him, so you probably care more about the red. A little easier to make. And then we got our big boy here, Mr. Dragon Soul. So what's nice about running Dragonguard and Dragon Soul is that Dragonguard is also a dragon, so the amount of damage that he's going to do is better. The only thing that sucks about running the Dragon Soul as a Dragonguard is that the boosting that you're doing is going to this exploding part and not the damage part. So the Dragon Soul is never going to do more damage than he starts with. So it's 8 damage, and then for every dragon, you're also getting another 3. So if you're running a full lineup of 4 dragons, you're getting 12 boost, which means you're doing 20 damage. 20 damage to all is not super crazy, like it's not really good at all, and it doesn't scale. However, it is very consistent. It isn't super hard to fill them, it doesn't take that much mana, so you'll be getting a good amount of mana generation as long as you're running a Firestorm at the start, which you should be. You'll be able to get lots of reds, and you'll find that he can kind of just loop himself over and over and over. So when you're just starting the game, if you can pull the Dragon Soul, it's insanely good, not to mention the amount of souls you'll be generating, so you'll just kind of be getting this passive constant soul boost. Nothing else on his traits is really all that exciting. This baby dragon thing is always awkward. So Dragon Soul, also very cool. Again, not really used late at all. I'll give some honorable mentions to Lord Ember, super really great from a mana generation perspective, so you can just make a ton of red. He also gives everyone a magic, so he's also very nice. They seem to imply you want to run him in the first slot. I mean, he's okay in the first slot. He doesn't take any red, so it's totally possible. I did generally try not to run him in the first slot. I would prefer something like a Mountain Crusher if you're just starting the game. Again, you probably wouldn't be running this guy all that much later on in the game, but also totally viable to run in the late game as well. So he's a pretty cool troop. He's like a little wild card guy. He definitely has value. The ability to choose the color that you turn to red makes this a lot stronger. It's usually just harder to get him the mana that he's looking for, since you're, again, trying to build around red mana more often than not. And then finally, I'll just mention Dragonian Monk. So he's actually deceptively cool. So he's destroying this X shape, so you kind of have to get good at figuring out where to place this. Just again, think that like wherever your cursor is or wherever you're tapping, it's going to build the X from there. So just kind of like follow it up with your eyes, or like draw it with your finger, whatever you need to do. But for every yellow that you'll hit, you'll be burying somebody. So I've found some uses for him, especially early game. Much cooler. I've even used him in like later game delves. It's totally possible. He starts with 50% mana, so that's also pretty nice. So pretty much in like one match, you'll be filling him up. The destroying piece, you'll get the full mana of all the things you destroy, so he has a little bit of mana generation too. Not the worst troop in the world. You can totally use him. He brings some value. So yeah, those are all the dragons at least that are there. I'll just give some other notables. So Infernus isn't a dragon, but he's on the list. So why is he on the list? Because he burns everybody on 4 or 5s, which of course enables our Fire Blade. So it's very easy to get the triple skull damage once you get to level 100. So before you're level 100, he still of course is great because of all the stuff that Infernus does. But he obviously fits into lineups a lot better once you get to level 100. Anyone that has the fire tree when they're level 100, Infernus instantly becomes like a must add to your lineup. So he's obviously super, super nice. And then I've thrown together some teams. So of course, given all the feedback that I've gotten, I've created like lower level, mid level, and high level teams when it comes to Dragonguard. So we'll start with the low level. So when you're just starting out, the only legendary that's in here is the Dragon Soul. He's going to be one of your primary damage dealers in this lineup. So we already kind of covered what he does. Drake Rider is somebody that's at least doing some mana conversion. So he's taking all the yellows that this team doesn't use and he's turning them to red. And then he's also doing some decent damage, which is pretty cool. And then of course, when he dies, he turns into this Drake Mount thing. The nice thing about Drake Mount, if you summon that, is that it won't mana block, at least for yellow. So that's pretty cool, because it's yellow and brown. So this troop is kind of like a cheap and easy mana conversion troop. It's nice that it converts to reds, which again, Dragonguard generally cares about. And then of course, Dragatar, which I didn't cover, he's just pumping up everyone's attack and armor. So like if you just cast Dragatar a lot, your team is just going to be doing like stupid amounts of damage, like in the early game. And again, he's only like he's only an ultra rare, so he's not even that complicated. Or no, I'm sorry, he's only a rare, so he's not even that hard to get. You'll be boosting a lot, and you'll just be doing so much more damage than everybody else. So he's obviously very cool to have. A little bit of skill reduction. I generally don't run him in the top slot, and the reason, of course, is because we have Old Faithful Mountain Crusher here. So the way this team would generally run is you try and get Mountain Crusher or Dragon Soul filled as quickly as you can, and then you just keep popping them off over and over and over again, and then cast these two when it makes sense. This team will be very effective. Pretty much just these two troops next to each other, Mountain Crusher with Dragon Soul, you could just keep using these two. You probably won't even end up casting these two all that much, but Drake Rider will help keep the team alive, or keep the loop flowing, I should say, once you get him full. And Dragatar, of course, is just going to pump all of these people up, so if you happen to lose your top troop, Dragon Soul is going to be hitting for just as hard. Like, they're all going to smack super hard every time you cast him. So this team would be insanely effective, early level, super great. The mid-level team that I've gotten here starts to boost up the number of troops that we've got. So we've added Flammifier into the mix, which I hope you crafted when that was available last week. But this is creating 10 red gems. It's also doing damage, so the damage piece of this is going to get boosted with every 4 or 5, so that's cool. We added Divinia into the mix here to explode everything, so this will give you a little more survivability. And then we chucked in the Dragon Soul again from a damage perspective. So again, this is assuming you don't have any mythics or anything cool and fancy. Like, I'm assuming you don't have like Infernus or Yao or anyone else that you'd want to chuck in here potentially. Again, Dragon Soul is the thing actually in this lineup that you could totally remove without it being an issue. Admittedly, Lord Ember doesn't get any benefit from the like magic pumping. The only reason this is an all dragon team is because Dragon Soul's in there. So if you have a more dependable damage source that's taking red mana besides Dragon Soul, you could totally swap out Dragon Soul for pretty much anything else that you would want. You'll have all the mana generation you would need with the other 3 troops. So just put some beefy damage dealery guy in here and this team will be totally great. You'll have all the red mana generation you could possibly want, defensive capability, and then some dude doing tons of damage. So this is like a mid-level dragon team. And then for the high-level dragon team, how many dragons are we going to have in it? No dragons. One dragon, technically. But no dragons, basically. So once you hit level 100, of course, this is where Infernus becomes a must-have kind of thing. So now we're also just getting greedy and chucking in the Possessed King. We've also got Yao. We've got Sky Hero. So every single thing in here loops. Any 4 or 5 match burns everybody. We also do triple skull damage. We have tons of red mana generation, even more red mana generation. You'll have firestorms running constantly because of Infernus. And you'll just bounce the board like crazy with Possessed King and potentially just like skull smack a trillion people for no reason. So when it gets to the end game, again, you want to be building around Infernus more often than not. If you're not taking advantage of the Fireblade, you're not really using the class most efficiently. You can obviously put together any kind of team that you want, like Worldbreaker could potentially fit in place of Infernus, for instance. I've used that team. That team's totally effective. I think I use that team exactly to level up. But once you get to level 100 again, like Infernus kind of becomes this must-have troop, so that way you can be doing that triple skull damage. So an example of that team in action against this team, let's not use my lab team. So again, with this team, what we're trying to do, either we're going to try and fill our Sky Hero immediately if we can. Any 4 or 5 match is going to be great for us. Since we see they have a Mercy, we obviously need to do something about this chunk of stuff here. Fortunately, we have this. Unfortunately, he's frozen. So we'll do this. We patiently wait for our turn. Now we're not frozen anymore, so that was useful. I'm going to do this for the reds. And then we're going to try and get that Sky Hero up. We appreciate that they helped us out. And now we're off into Sky Hero land. I would love to slice this to maybe get a 5 match there, but that's being pretty greedy. We still have that storm running. You know what? For lols, let's do it. Yeah. No, we didn't win, but now we've got Yao up and running, and it's going to take us 2 seconds to fill Infernus. Wouldn't that have been cool, though, if that totally worked? So at this point, like, I'm in the ideal situation that I'm after. Like, I basically have everybody burning. I've got Yao ready to match anything, and then whenever I don't have any Yao matches, I'm just casting Infernus. So I see that I don't have what I want, so we cast Infernus. And because of the triple skull damage, that guy's just dead. I'm assuming I triple skull damage that guy. I didn't even see it. But again, we're looking for Yao matches. There's nothing. We see a nice meaty 3 yellow there. So we'll try this. We get our fun mana. We triple skull damage that guy. And I could just triple skull damage that guy, but we'll let Yao do something so Yao can have his day in the sun. So that's an example of that team running. So again, it's kind of like taking advantage of the triple skull damage, all the red mana generation you could possibly want. Always pretty cool. I have no idea why this team picture is this person like sinking into the floor. That's pretty funny. We'll keep that for the video. And again, against a team like this, what's nice again about running Dragonguard is that we have the banishment for this life and death. So let's just demo this as well. Hopefully I can pull off 2 wins in a row here with this team, just because. And again, so we're prioritizing our Sky Hero if we can. We're going to take this to grab this and this. Get away with them not getting anything fun. Looking to see if I get anything else. No blues, no yellows, so we'll just go reds. Well, now we've got our yellows. And I'll do this for the blues. And now we're in that fun spot where we're looking for Yao matches or Infernus matches. I could technically get greedy. This is a decent amount of red on the board. I could cast Sky Hero just to jumble things up. But we're just going to do that. See what we get. Nothing all too exciting, so it's Infernus time. Again, nothing too exciting, but we have our Sky Hero, so we'll use that. For some mana, there's 2 mana in both, but they're clustered a little more over here, so I'll do this. Yep, there you go. It's a little trick with Sky Hero. I don't know if a lot of people think about that, but kind of look for where the mana clusters are, and the last thing you want to try and do is break up a cluster with Sky Hero. So like there's 2 in this column, for instance, but there's a decent cluster of red here, so chopping down this isn't really going to be the best thing on the planet. Something to keep in mind when you're playing. I'm getting the best matches on the planet as far as Yao is concerned. I actually haven't cast him once yet. But away we go over here. Our boy Yao still gets to cry. However, since we're fighting life and death, I'm actually going to cast Yao anyway, just because I want this guy dead. So we're going to cast. Somebody tell me that the Possessed King isn't the best troop in the game. I dare you! I dare you to do it. Life and death used to exist, and so did that guy, so you win. So that's the cool things that you can do with the Dragonguard. We were banishing everything that was there, we were getting magic pumped, so if you were running like some kind of other weapon, you'd be getting extra damage there. But again, with the burning, the triple damage, all the red mana generation on the planet, extremely effective class. Of course, you could always sub in someone like Taipan. Taipan's going to help you get red mana right away. But I think overall, as far as the class is concerned, Dragonguard is really strong. I actually rate them very highly. I think they're not necessarily one of the most optimal classes in the game. Not having that 50% mana start, not having some way of jumbling the board a little more, like it doesn't have the lightning strike and the storm tree. It's kind of missing a couple things that I like to have in my classes, but it also is bringing a ton of stuff that other classes don't have. It's rare to get classes that are decent that have this 40% damage reduction, so this is really cool. The ability to magic pump yourself is very cool. The ability to start with the barrier is pretty cool. The ability to banish off is actually really cool. And Fireblade, of course, is insanely cool. So I would encourage you, if you kind of are digging around in your classes and you're not totally sure what to do, you've already got your Titan, your Frost Mage, your Sentinel, you've got the classes you care about up to 100. What do you do next? I would say Dragonguard is actually a really solid other option to do there. Of course, Sunspear is the other. So that is everything as far as the Dragonguard is concerned. I give them a solid rating. I really recommend people try them out more. I think they're a very undervalued class overall, but there's a ton of cool stuff they bring to the table. You can build some really nice teams with Dragonguard. So that is everything as far as the Dragonguard class is concerned. I hope you liked it. I encourage you to try Dragonguard, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. See ya!